Good evening, Patrea here. How are you? I thought I'd share with you a quote from a management guru who wrote this in his book back in 1967. But it's one of those classic books. Now, he might have been a professor of management, but what he had to say is so highly applicable to the effectiveness of all of us, regardless of what we're doing, whether it's management, whether it's managing our own home life, our own business, our own solo business, and even whether you're in school, work, etc., or managing the home. So just so many things, it comes down to this. So I'm just going to quote you from here. So if there is any one secret of effectiveness, it is concentration. Effective executives do first things first, and they do one thing at a time. So often, this is a quote by Peter Drucker, the late Peter Drucker, who is well known as probably being one of the gurus of management in organisational management. And he's written a lot on the effective executive, which is this title. And so for him to say this is the one secret, if there is one secret to effectiveness, it's concentration, I'd be sitting up and paying attention, because Peter Drucker was a very cluey guy and really had a lot of great things to say. In fact, the title of this chapter in his book is called First Things First, and one of the later sort of adherents to management behaviour, Stephen Covey, wrote an entire book about this principle and called it First Things First. And so really it's about looking at that power of concentration and whatever we're doing. And so there are so many things these days that are really competing for our attention. And even back in 1967, when Peter Drucker wrote this, he was talking about how so many things for the executives were drawing their attention, and how time was one of those quite finite resources, and how important it was to be able to concentrate, to be able to do the most important things first. So examples would be, when you get to work, doing your email first is probably not the most productive use of your time, because it's being reactive to the things that are coming from other people. He gives an example of a pharmaceutical CEO who turned the company around from being just kind of like a small business to being one of the great leaders within an 11-year period. That's a leader in the pharmaceutical industry. And it was because he decided his business, or this business, was going to really focus on setting their own agenda and being really focused on leading research in areas that they were interested in. And he managed to turn the company around quite significantly. So when we set our own agenda, when we prioritise the tasks that we're interested in doing and then following through on those, we become effective in our lives. So I'm wondering, what are the ways in which you might be able to, I'm just going to swap my hands over here, wondering what are the ways in which you could be more effective by really prioritising what are the first things that you want to, what are the key things, the most important things that you really want to get done in your day, in your week, in your month, in your year, that too often just get pushed off because they're not urgent necessarily. They're important, but they don't have that same urgency that things like an email sitting in your inbox or a message on your phone might have, or some of the easier things that are just easier to get around to doing. So sometimes when we prioritise the things that are most important and do those first, we're going to set ourselves on a much more effective track for the day, not just that day, but getting those big things done. So I hope you can look at your day tomorrow or whenever you see this and think of the start of your day. What's the tone you set by doing the things that are most important? And by really focusing your concentration, removing the distractions that might be around, you can get through those most important things much more effectively and raise your level of effectiveness in the process. But being aware of what your distractions are, staying focused on the key task, and doing that thing, as he said, doing it one thing